people think before they act. Fools don't. That tells you what we've talked about. How do we prevent this? Stop and think. See, Jesus is not the cosmic killjoy. He's not saying, how can I make your life so uncomfortable and so pleasureless? I'm going to give you these commandments. He's trying to protect our heart. Right? He's trying to save us from all sorts of pain. Which is why when Jesus starts talking about this whole issue of sexuality in Matthew chapter 5, listen to what Jesus says. Matthew chapter 5, beginning at verse 27. You have heard that it was said, never commit adultery. Now, because our tendency is to say, oh yeah, that's everybody else's problem. Here's what's going on. You got every married person who has never physically crossed that line going, yep, that's me. That other guy over there, you should check on him. And you got every unmarried person there going, adultery? You gotta get married for that. So the rest of this stuff is free game. And whatever the line is, I am all over the line till I get married. Right? And so I'm thinking it's somebody else's problem till Jesus opens his mouth some more. And he doesn't stop it. You've heard that it was said, never commit adultery. The next words out of his mouth are this. But I tell you that whoever looks with lust has already committed adultery in his heart. And that applies to men and to women and to married people and to non-married people and to people of all ages. Because again, what Jesus is trying to do is not say, oh, how can I cramp your style and stop you from pleasure? He wants to keep us from sliding down so fast that we crash and burn. He wants to protect our relationships. And to do that, he says, I want you to see things a different way than the world is usually looking at it. Now, identity-wise, this sort of way of looking at people has been it's been pretty standard for a long time. That says this: your value is in how you look. Your value is in what you have. Your value is in how you look and what you have. Advertisements. How many of you have ever seen an advertisement that says, buy this thing, and you have the most ordinary or homely looking person on there? Is that what the advertisements are like? Or do they have the person that you're like, whoa, I could never be that person? But they're saying, well, buy this and you will become this person. Now, even if you're wise enough to know in your head, no, that's not right, here's what that is actually setting up. And we buy into this one all the time. It's setting up the idea that you're a sexual being, which you are, and that your pleasure and your happiness is the highest goal. And that's the way to determine your identity. I got one word for you on that one. Really? Really? Is that the best we got? Is that really the best life? Is that really determine our identity? How we look? Does that make who we are? Because that kind of value, from my perspective, actually makes us more like objects. And actually then devalues and dehumanizes us, doesn't it? And if that's if relationships and happiness are based on looks or sex appeal or sex output, then again, what about those who don't measure up? And what are people willing to do to attain that? I'm loved and I'm somebody feeling. And what happens when, like me, you get older and age takes its inevitable toll? What do? Just trade someone in on a newer, better model? Because it happens all the time. And the root of that is seeing people as objects and things and your values and how you look and what you can do for me. Guys, we bought into the lies. We bought into the lies that my happiness is a right. And we bought into the lies that my desires are meant to be satisfied, and that something's wrong either with me or with you if they're not being satisfied, and that the highest and best love must be expressed sexually, and we don't realize the damage that that's doing to our relationships. See, we don't realize the damage that's doing to our relationships because at their deepest and their best, relationships aren't based on looks. They need to be based on trust and commitment and humility and service and sacrifice, and sacrificing love. Not the sort of self-serving and pleasure-filled happiness, my happiness first kind of love that we're kind of buying into. See, we don't realize what's at stake here. It is our identity and it's our heart. It's the stuff that hits us at the core. Now God says, don't miss this. God says you're a sexual being because that's how he created us. But he also says that is not your value. That is not your worth. You have worth and you have value because of who I say you are. And what I say, regardless of how you look or how you perform or how much happiness you provide other people or pleasure, is you are special and precious and valuable because I made you and because I love you and because I died to have a relationship with you. That's where your value is. Now again, the pull away from that is really, really strong. And it has been for a really, really long time. Even in the church. There's this guy, his name was Paul, and God used him to write a whole lot of Bible. Well, in Paul's day, that world was just as sexually do whatever you want as our world, maybe even more so. It was a world where it was normal and culturally valued for prostitution, for men to do stuff with boys, all sorts of stuff. Okay? And people in the church are going, yeah, that's for me. That's good. Besides, Paul, isn't like this just biology, right? It's biology, it's not spirituality. And Paul says, no. And they're saying, no, listen to this. Here's some slippery slope arguments. They're like, no, but I like it. But it feels good. But everybody's doing it. But that's just the way I am. But I'm entitled to happiness too, right? And besides, I have freedom in Christ, correct? Hear those slippery slope arguments coming out again, and here's what Paul says. You can actually take out that little folded thing and turn to the back page as I'm reading part of this to you. It's from 1 Corinthians chapter 6 in the Message translation. It's on the very back page of that half-sheet folded thing. Here's what Paul says. Just because something is technically legal doesn't mean it's spiritually appropriate. If I went around doing whatever I thought I could get by with, I'd be a slave to my whims. You know the old saying, first you eat to live and then you live to eat. Well, it may be true that the body is only a temporary thing, but that's no excuse for stuffing your body with food or indulging it with sex. Since the master honors you with a body, honor him with your body. Now, if you're following along, get your pen and circle this next part. It really nails it. There's more to sex than mere skin on skin. Sex is as much spiritual mystery as physical fact. As it's written in Scripture, the two become one. Since we want to become spiritually one with the Master, we must not pursue the kind of sex that avoids intimacy and commitment, leaving us more lonely than ever. The kind of sex that can never, quote, become one. And then I'm going to jump down just a little bit Don't you realize your body is a sacred place, this place of the Holy Spirit? Don't you see that you can't live however you please, squandering what God paid such a high price for? The physical part of you is not some piece of property belonging to the spiritual part of you. God owns the whole work, so let people see God in and through your body. What Paul's saying is God has a better way. A better way than the way we're used to looking at things, which is like giving a little piece of your heart away a little bit at a time until you're empty and you got nothing left to give. In God's way is that relationships are based on commitment. And relationships are based on intimacy. And relationships are based where lives honor God, even, maybe especially in your bodies. And relationships are in a culture, back then just like today, where sex is increasingly anything you want it to be. The message of Christianity is this. Sex is sacred. And the who matters way more than the what. And that really transforms the what and the how. And maybe that means we start with this whole idea of sexuality at a different place. Alex, you want to help lead us into where we're going?
Absolutely. So we are going to look at maybe starting in a different place, and that place is friendship. And to get us into that, we're going to look at a couple famous pairs of friends that were committed to each other, that trusted each other, and had each other's backs. So up on the screen, you're going to see a picture, and I am going to give you guys some questions. If you think the answer is A, we're going to do the A like in the YMCA. If you think the answer is B, because there's only A or B answers, we're going to do a B, which I think, am I making a B for you guys, or am I making a D? A D? Okay, you do a B. All right, so if we can see that slideshow. All right, and then the first one after that. All right, so these two friends. Is it A, Frodo and Sam, or B, Bilbo and Ham? What do we think? I think it's A. What's the answer? It's A. And we see throughout their whole journey, these two friends, they've got each other's backs. Sam even carries Frodo up a mountain when he decides he can't do it himself. Let's see what our next one is. These two friends, a lot of us know them. Is it A, Bob and Larry, or B, Buzz and Woody? I'm hearing kids shouting B. What is the answer? It's B. We had a couple A's. All right, this next one. All right. Is it A, these two wizards, are they Rupert and David, or is it B, Ron and Harry? What is it? What's the answer? B. It's B. That's right. All right. I think we've only got just a couple more left of these famous friends. All right. This guy, Big Bird, he has a really hairy friend that he trusts so much. Is that hairy friend Snuffy? Oh, I did two A's. I'm so
that hairy
sorry.
guy.
Or is it that hairy guy? The second A, is that a B? That's a B. What do you guys think? Is it Snuffy or that hairy guy? What's the answer? It's Snuffy, yeah. All right. These two friends, we have Arthur. The show's named after him, but his best friend, the rabbit. Is it Buster Baxter or Binky Barnes?
Buster Baxter.
Buster Baxter is right. We have a couple of people that are really clued in. All right, and is this one? This is our last one. So on Paw Patrol, I got schooled this last week. That is Chase and his friend that flies a helicopter. Is it A, Cloud, or B, Sky? B, it's Sky, yes. Good job, guys. Now, all these friends we see in different ways and in different levels. They are trusting each other. They are committed to each other. And we think that is a really good place to start. So, Pastor, you want to tell us a bit more?
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up, we've been talking about how do we avoid the slippery slope. Because it's so easy, right? You just see this and you're like, oh, that looks like fun. But once you step off, you don't even recognize that you're going to keep going. And you're going to pick up speed. And it's way too fast. And it's not going to end well. fire, so